Hello and welcome everybody to Microsoft Ignite. I am going to be your host and your presenter for this session. I'm Jack Skinner, perhaps better known on Twitter as Developer Jack. So if you're tweeting along with Ignite today, feel free to drop us a tweet and say hi. And joining me behind the scenes is my amazing co-host, my moderator with the mostest, Christopher Harrison. How are you going, Christopher?
I'm not too bad. It's great to be here. I'm super excited to see your presentation.
Marvelous. So we might give it about another 60 seconds for everyone to join and jump between sessions. I, for one, am incredibly grateful that I don't have to run from one side of a convention center to another for several days straight. So I'll let people click through their session catalogs and jump into the session. While we wait for everyone to make sure they've got the right stream, I'd love to hear from you all in the Q&A throughout this segment, both for any questions or clarifications you might have, but also I'd love for you to share with me what was your first programming experience? What excited or made you curious to come and learn code? And perhaps what do you want to learn out of this introductory session on Python today? The more you share in the Q&A, the better I can help teach you the basics. And hopefully you'll be leaving the session in about half an hour feeling a lot more empowered and encouraged to go and learn some Python. So jump into the Q&A for me and say hello. Let me know where you're watching from today. I am streaming to you from Sydney, Australia, and I think we're chatting behind the scenes here, and we've got people representing most time zones on the globe behind the scenes on this call. So this really is a truly global online event. Now, for everyone joining, I'd just like to make a very quick call out to the code of conduct that we have here at Ignite. It's a really important part of making a safe and welcoming online space. And so these breakout learning sessions are subject to that code of conduct. There should be a post in the top of the Q&A for you with a little bit more detail. So just a quick reminder there. So for those that have just joined the session, my name is Jack. I'm going to be hosting this session today all about Python, a great first programming language. And if you are tweeting along with us, make sure you drop me a hello at Developer Jack on Twitter. On today's agenda, I'm going to be taking you through the very, very first steps with what even is Python as a programming language. We're going to install it, and I've got a tip for you. If you want to follow along with me, you can. It's quick, it's easy, and I'll take you through the steps to do so. We've got two options here, idle and VS Code, to actually build your Python programs. And then we're going to do a little bit of live coding, and that always makes my nerves jump. And so hopefully you'll be following along as well and hit the same mistakes. And then at the end of this session, we're going to have some resources so that you can go and learn some more in your own time and follow your curiosity to learn Python. Throughout this session, Christopher is, of course, behind scenes with us and will help drop some informational links throughout the stream. So make sure you got your screenshots handy, but you can also copy and paste them out of the Q&A. It's great to see everyone popping some Q&A in there, so thank you very much. So what is Python, and why are you all here to learn it? Well, Python was my very first programming language that I learned all those years ago. I joined a high school programming club, and it was the very first line of code that I wrote properly. It's really beginner friendly and really easy to read, which means you don't have to learn complex syntax or really complicated coding to do really cool stuff with it. And you can build lots of different types of projects along your learning journey, a blog, a chatbot, adventure games, so much more. Python is a very powerful and flexible programming language, which means you can follow several different paths for whatever piques your curiosity. Now, in terms of building a career as an engineer or a developer, Python is used in all sorts of different places: machine learning, web development, infrastructure and scripting, and so much more. And so I want you to take away from this that Python is a great introductory language, not just because it's beginner friendly, but also because it has so much opportunity attached to it. Now, to learn more, make sure you bookmark python.org. That's the home of the Python project. It's where you can get all of the installers, the documentation, and to get started. Now, speaking of installation, that was a segue. We're actually going to take you through installing Python for the very first time. Now, if you've got a second screen open, first thing you'll need to know is what operating system you're running, because Python works on Windows, Mac OS, and Linux. and actually quite a few more other micro operating systems as well. For those of you running Windows like I am, you can head straight to the Microsoft Store and download Python. macOS also has Python, but the trick here is that while macOS comes bundled with Python, it comes with version 2, and we want to be using version 3. So make sure you head to python.org/downloads. And for those of you that might already have had some coding experience on macOS and are learning Python for the first time, you can use Homebrew to go and install Python as well. There are plenty of great blogs out there if you give it a quick search. I'd recommend following those if you're balancing multiple different Python versions. And last up, for anyone viewing this on Linux, you can of course head over to python.org/downloads and grab your package of choice. And the same suggestion here actually is that there's lots of different package ecosystems out there, especially on Linux, and most of them have Python binaries for you. So if you're using, say, for example, Ubuntu or Debian, those package managers have got you covered as well. Now, the trick through all of this is to make sure that you're running Python 3. That's the most recent version and the version that I'm going to be showing you today. The other trick is, especially with the Windows installer, make sure you tick the box to add Python to your path. It is going to make things easier down the track. Idle. I giggled a bit when I saw this to begin with because I thought, what is idle? But it's a great first environment for learning Python, and it comes bundled with your installer as well. It is the integrated development and learning environment, and it's if you're familiar with other programming languages, it comes with its own REPL built in. It is included, which is why we're going to do a quick demo with it today, and it comes with a bunch of great features, especially useful for first-time developers. Syntax highlighting will color and style your code according to the required syntax. So you can look to the color of your code to determine whether or not you've made a mistake or a typo. The auto completion helps you remember the different function names or variable names in your code. And it's got a whole bunch more features that are really useful for learning and trying new things. I certainly have learnt programming languages where you've had to go through and compile things and it's taken some time to iterate and learn. Python's really simple in that you can just quickly load up idle and try something. And that's what we're going to be doing shortly. Now, over your journey learning Python, you may also find you reach for some more powerful tools. And my preference is to be using VS Code with the Python extension. Now, VS Code is a really flexible, powerful integrated development environment, or an IDE, and it does have a really extensive marketplace of add-ons. So I'm going to be showing you VS Code shortly and how to install the Python extension. It does work on any operating system, but here's the trick. It does actually require Python 3. So if you've gone ahead and installed Python and installed it on your Mac, but you haven't installed Python 3 yet, you're going to need to use version 3. Now, VS Code takes the feature set of idle and helps build upon that. So it does have syntax coloring and code completion, but it also has tools like linting, debuggers, code navigation. And the first time I looked at this feature set, I was puzzled and went, what's linting? So linting is kind of like grammar for code. It's the way we style and format what we write, what we code, so that it is easily accessible and understandable. And it follows a set of consistent rules. And that way, when I go and have a look at something that, say, Christopher's written as a demo, I can understand his line of thinking for what he was trying to write in code. Code navigation also helps me click between my different Python functions and code so that I don't have to be fumbling for different files and trying to remember where I saved something. So VS Code is really powerful, and we are going to take a look at it. And if you're a little bit more comfortable with writing code, perhaps from a different programming language, I'd recommend giving it a go. So why don't we go ahead and write a hello world, the first introductory program almost anyone will ever write in a programming language. You can follow along at home. So wherever you're streaming from today, make sure you go and load up idle or VS Code, and we're going to do a bit of a demo. Now, I'll skip ahead in the slides here so that you can take a copy, but these slides will also be published afterwards. So if you're watching this talk on demand, make sure you skip ahead to this slide where we're going to type in hello world. Now I'm going to load up idle, which you can see here, and simply type out these commands. And what this does is it tells Python to print out the message hello world on screen. And there we go. Nice and simple. Congratulations, everyone following it at home. You have written your first Python program. Now, what is this actually doing? Well, first thing you'll notice here is that the coloring is a little bit different. Print is a reserved word and it's built into Python. Hello world is surrounded by the quote marks, and that tells Python that it is a string or a sequence of characters. We can play around with this and use double quotes. And Python supports both. But here's a tip, don't go mixing them because they do work ever so slightly differently when you're chopping and changing between double and single quotes. That, however, I'm going to leave as a task for your experimentation and learning after this stream. The next thing I want to teach you is variables in Python. So for example, we can type out our string, but actually store it in a variable. And you'll notice here it doesn't print it out to screen. That's because the value of the string is stored in that variable. And now we can use that variable multiple times. Live coding always ends in fantastic typos. Now, if we go ahead and use this, you'll see that we do get that string on screen again. Now, the last thing I want to show you is a very quick, I guess, slightly more advanced demo, and it's exclusive for those of you watching this video and not just looking at the slides. You see, Python works a lot like, you might be looking at this going, but that looks a little bit like algebra, and it sure is, because you can do numbers and you can multiply them together. And I wanted to leave this with you to go and start experimenting with how you might use a little bit of your mathematical knowledge and your newfound Python knowledge to build a calculator. There's a bunch of demo projects you can go and have a look at online, but my favorite thing is to think of the problem and then start looking through the documentation to understand how I might approach this. So these are some basics in Python. I do want to show you VS Code. In VS Code, I have saved exactly the same code, the same text into a demo.py file. And you'll notice here that it has already prompted me, do you want to install the Python extension? So I'm going to go ahead and install that extension. There we go. And I'll head back to my code. I'm going to close the linter for now. We're not doing anything too complicated that needs a style guide. And in this instance, we're going to head up to run and run without debugging. And if this works well, you can see in the bottom of my screen there, we might zoom that in a little bit for people to see. In the bottom of my screen, the terminal has the same code as idle. And this is really useful to know. So idle is great for interactive programming where you type out a line or a command and you let it run. VS Code is a really useful tool for starting to build up your project where you can save your code in files and run them in the editor. Now, idle does also have this feature, so you can open a new file in idle. Would you know there's the demo.py as well? But my preference is to try new things in idle and then save them into VS Code and continue working there. But for now, let's head back to the demo and continue going. So what are your next steps for understanding Python? Hopefully you're all going to go away from this and start to build up that little calculator I've challenged you all to. And as you start to search more and read more, you might come across something called a virtual environment or a conda environment. These are useful tools that mean your multiple different Python installations don't interact with each other and they don't sort of cause unexpected issues. And so feel free to go and explore virtual environments, but they're not critically required out of the box. They're useful to know because you are going to encounter them. You can also create and use lots of different Python libraries or modules. There's a really strong package ecosystem with Python. And so if you think about, say, for example, writing a chatbot that scrapes information from a web page, parsing a web page is really complicated stuff. But there are packages out there that do the heavy lifting for you. So I'd encourage you to, on your learning journey, have a look at some of the Python package ecosystem and see what you might like to do to use those packages using tools like pip. And last up, I want to encourage you to get involved in the community and especially see if there's a PyCon near you. Now, I'm a little bit biased. I'm wearing my PyCon shirt here because I help organise PyCon AU in Australia. But PyCons run around the world and they are very community-centric events. There are many PyCons that happen and they would all love for people like you to join the community and potentially even give a talk. I know a lot of PyCons put a lot of time and effort into creating a safe and welcoming space and encourage new speakers as well. It's always really important to share what you're learning with others so that they can learn as well. So make sure you look out for a PyCon near you and see if you can stream in. One of the benefits this year is that a lot of these events are a lot more accessible without travel. And so PyCon AU turned into PyConline AU and ran just a few weeks ago, so you can catch the videos online as well. PyCons are a great space to learn new code. And last up, you're starting to wonder, well, Jack, you've told me all about Python. You've set me a homework challenge. How on earth do I go and learn more? Well, I'll tell you, we've got a couple of resources for you. First of all, we've got a Python First Steps module as part of Microsoft Learn, and it's a great self-paced course that you can do on your own time. Make sure you head to the link down there below, aka.ms/python-learn-module. Now, I'll give you another tip. If you're watching this live or over the next week, the Cloud Skills Challenge is running. And so this is a great opportunity to go and do your very first Learn module and potentially participate in that Cloud Skills Challenge. The second thing I want to point out here is the Python for Beginners. This is a great repo that was put together. So it's aka.ms/python-getting-started. Now, I believe Christopher's also going to put some of those links in the Q&A as we go, and we'll make sure I tweet them out after this as well for all of your easy access and reference. Last up, go and have a look at a resource that was published last year, which is the Channel 9 Introduction to Python video series. It's a fantastic series of short modules that you can learn as a video course as well. And I'll make sure I tweet a link to that afterwards, and Christopher will pop a link into the Q&A. So that's it. That's enough of me talking. I'm really keen to hear from you on what your questions are and how I can help you to learn Python as your first programming language. Now, Christopher, I can see that there's been a fantastic stream of questions coming through, and I've got to admit, I'm having this trouble keeping track of all of the questions there and presenting. So have you got some top picks for me that I can help answer?
Yeah, I've got a few. There's been a lot of great questions, and I just want to reiterate, please, if you've got more questions, go ahead and ask them. But let me start with this one, which is, what types of apps can you build with Python? Is it only for data science?
No, absolutely. Great question. So I would certainly say that people speak a lot about using Python in data science, but it's not exclusively for data science. My first experience with Python was doing building small websites, building challenges and understanding some game code. I built a little interactive puzzle adventurer game, a little text-based thing in high school. There's also a lot of work going into parts of the Python ecosystem to be able to build apps with, so sort of mobile apps or Windows apps with the PyBee project. And this is what I love about Python, is that it's not just a single focused programming language. It's got layers upon layers of community that are using Python in all sorts of amazing different ways. For example, my colleague, another one of the cloud advocates, Dave Glover, did a demo of running Python on a Raspberry Pi as an introductory programming lab. So as much as we might talk about Python building massive web scale cloud scale websites or mobile apps, embedded devices also runs Python as well. And that's where I think the important thing here is learn the basics, become comfortable with maybe your first project, and then as part of your learning journey, pick something you're interested in. If you want to go and learn web dev, go and look at libraries like Django and Flask. If you want to look at more data science skills, maybe head to Microsoft Learn and follow through some of those data science modules that are in Python. There's such a massive ecosystem of tools that, what you want to learn is really up to your own adventure.
You almost like answered this next question as well in that fantastic answer that you just gave. So I'll go ahead and ask it and give you the opportunity to officially answer it, which
Sure.
is in your opinion, what do you think made Python so popular that at least for me, it sort of just like sat there sort of under the radar, and then all of a sudden it was everywhere?
Yeah. Look, I touched on a few of the reasons for that, but maybe I'll share also my personal journey with Python. So years and years ago, young whippersnapper me wanted to build a website. And so I learned some sort of web design things, but I didn't really know how to sort of write more complex applications. And so there was an after-school programming club that I joined, and I rocked up all sort of starry-eyed and optimistic at what I might learn. And Python was that very first programming language that was taught. And since then, I have reached for Python in every single job that I've had. I may not have been using Python as my main programming language, or even had a job where programming was my job, but I've always used Python in a different way. In one job, I was building websites that were running on Python. In another, I had a management role, and I used Python to sort of do some data analysis over some reporting data that I had. And nowadays, I use Python to teach other people and get them excited about code. So I think everyone's journey with Python is personal, is different, and really is driven by what interests them and what makes them curious about tech. And I think one of the things that's made it so popular is also its accessibility. It's really easy to get started. And then as you start to get curious about it, you can scratch away another layer and learn another depth of complexity with the language. The other thing that I think makes Python so successful and so prominent as a language and as a technology is that the community is very focused on creating that safe and welcoming space for newcomers. And, this goes to a very much bigger topic, but that's critical for the success and the longevity and the health of an open source tech. And so I go to a PyCon and I feel included, even if I don't know anyone there. I walk up and someone gives you a smile and says, welcome. And if you've attended a tech event before, you may not have experienced that, but PyCons have it in droves. And so the community for me also makes Python really, really fantastic as a programming language.
I'd agree completely with that, and at least of all the ones that I've experienced, Python is my favorite community. I'm going to avoid using the word best and ranking them, but at least for me personally, Python is definitely my favorite. So how about this one? Maybe just at a high level, the difference between and the call out here is Notepad Guinea, which I had honestly never heard of until just the other day. Idle, and then I'll add VS Code as far as editing Python. And which do you use? Why would you use any one of those?
Yeah, I think the difference will change over time. The features that get added to a different editor will be different in 6 months. They'll be different in 12 months. And I don't really pay too much attention to the feature by feature difference now or next week. What I look at is what am I trying to achieve? And then what do I want to get to? So with idle, I often load it up just to run a quick couple of tests. For example, if I'm trying to learn something and there's a really great Stack Overflow post that has explained the solution to me, I might take that code and pop it into idle because I know I can just quickly run and test a few things. The same thing goes for referencing the Python docs. Often they'll have a sample, and knowing that I can run that and tweak it and understand it is really powerful for me. For tools like VS Code, I reach for VS Code when I want to do something more complex, when I am working with things like virtual environments, because the Python extension has great virtual environment integration. So it's not to say that one is better than another or to sort of feed into the editor wars, so to speak. It's more about saying, well, what problem are you trying to solve and how are you most comfortable solving that? There's nothing wrong with loading up Notepad or Notepad++ or any other editor that you are already confident with. You know, reach for the tools that you know and build something exciting. That's what I'd say to editors.
I love that answer. If the only tool you have is a hammer and everything looks like a nail, that's a perfect answer. I love that. Yep. So the next question here is, are there any popular frameworks that are built on top of Python?
Very much so. So my background is a lot more in web development, and so I'll speak to that from personal experience. Django and Flask are probably some of the more popular frameworks that are built on top of Python. Django even has dedicated conferences to it, Django cons around the world. And Flask is a great tool, especially if you want to go and build things like APIs and you just want a little bit of help with the web HTTP stuff. So if you want to go and build something like a blog, or like a little website for yourself, go and use something like Django and Flask and learn that way. It's difficult to say go and learn one tool over the other. I often try and set a small achievable project and then find out ways to solve it, because at the end of the project, you know, I might have built my blog on Flask and then turned around and gone, wow, Django would have been so much easier, but it would have been the same way if I'd done it differently. So those are the sorts of frameworks that I'd look to, but don't get too caught up in framework versus framework or package versus package. Find something, learn it, and then realize in hindsight that maybe something else would work as well. And that's the best way to go about learning tools in Python.
I agree completely. I'd also add my love of Django knows no bounds.
Indeed.
It's one of my favorites. How about Jupyter? What would you use Jupyter for?
So Jupyter notebooks are a really great way to sort of step through different parts of your Python code, and they're really popular when doing things with data science or some machine learning. I don't have a huge amount of experience with Jupyter notebooks myself, but I would encourage you to set a bit of a research project if you want to go and learn Jupyter notebooks. And just like I said with the website, pick a data set, pick a project or something that you want to learn, and go and give it a go. Load it up and see what happens, because that's what I would do if I was going to go and learn Jupyter notebooks today. I would start searching. I'd find a tutorial, a beginner's guide to Jupyter notebooks, and I'd start there.
So I'm going to ask this question because I think it's a good one, because we still have a lot of Python 2 that's sitting out there. But I have a feeling the answer to this is going to be, well, it depends. Is it safe to upgrade a Python 2 app into Python 3?
Look, that's a great question, and it will take some time for me to answer it. So I just want to call out, if you've got any last questions for this session, we've got about 2 minutes left on the clock. Make sure you pop those questions in there. And if I haven't taken 2 minutes to tell you the answer to upgrading Python 2 to Python 3, then we'll answer those questions. Look, you're absolutely spot on, Christopher. It really does depend. It will depend on what features your Python 2 app uses. It will depend on how big that application is, how much work is going to go into it. A lot of work has gone into backporting Python 3 features into Python 2.7. Many years of work went in as part of the project. So it's not entirely impossible, but it's not to say you can click a button and just make it magically work for you. What I would say is, if you've got an existing Python 2 application and you are thinking about upgrading it to Python 3, go and read up on some of the differences and look at, you know, how big and complicated your Python 2 project is. I can't give specific advice because I can't see your project, but, you know, go in and look at that cautiously, and then figure out, you know, especially if this is your first time working with Python, maybe migrating 2 versions of Python is a bit of an audacious task. I would certainly feel nervous if you asked me to go and do that with a C# project, for example, because I don't know C# nearly as well. Same thing for beginning your Python journey. A migration is going to be complicated. It's not impossible. It can absolutely be done, but it is a big, big effort. So maybe look at learning some Python 3, understanding what's different in Python 2, and then take on that project.
I dig it. I think this is a perfect question to end on, which is, what topics would you start with in Python to do your own thing? Would it be work problems or your own ideas?
Well, I can tell you that I've got more work problems than I care to admit. But I like to switch off from work when I'm working on fun projects for my own learning. And so I would say pick something that is interesting to you, whether it's related to sport that you might play, something that your kids are building, something you could do together at home. You know, pick something that's going to pique your interest and your curiosity over time, so that when you really want to put the laptop away with work, you can still enjoy and have fun with Python separately. Folks, we're exactly at 12:30, which means we're going to have to wrap up this session. Christopher, thank you so much for being a fantastic moderator behind the scenes, and to all of the production crew that I can see smiling down there, thank you so much for putting this together. I'm going to be tweeting out these links from the session afterwards, so if there's anything that I haven't been able to answer for you, feel free to drop me a note. But for now, that's the end of this segment, and I'll let you get back to Ignite. Thanks very much, everyone. Take care.